Sometimes I have to be real careful about subject matter that I address or talk about when people have questions or people post things up on, a Facebook timeline, right, that covers the whole gamut, right, of subject matter. What do you want? What do you want to converse about? What do you want to communicate about? There's who you are, and there's who I am, there's who, what everything else is. It's all communicating with everything, right? And because I'm very familiar with this terrain, simply because of the work that I do, right? And I've known this. Remember, I've always referred back to when I was a child. I'm a polarity integrator. I'm an endogenous oversoul, and that means that my chromosome pairs, right, your DNA, the helix, it means that I'm in a state of balance. Okay, so one of my friends, Irina Goaya, I posted up here. Basically, I think it was a TikTok deal where somebody associated with academia, right, is talking about, for example, gender issues. And so I made a few comments because it's true, because I'm familiar with this, because I'm androgynous. When you think about male, female, right? And I did a video once on what I call gender programming and or gender splitting technology. Now, when you break it down into the most elemental nursery school blocks of atoms, electrons, protons, and neutrons, and I'm familiar with all the other names that we give to particles of energy, but to simplify this, sort of put a tight focus on this, you think about the cycling of atoms. Atoms cycle. And you realize there is an exchange, right, between ions, negative and positive ions, right? Giving and taking, sharing one and another, right? In order to do what? Maintain balance. The balance of the atoms. Now, if we take that one step further, we can go from atoms to atmospheric. Hey, and then we can go to density, altitude. And we can also go into density, altitude, pressure. Pressure washer. Now we're into echo chambers. Boomerangs. What I do to you, I do to me. So now we're back to the nuclear power plant. The nucleus of a cell. The nucleus of a living cell membrane, right? Living cells in the body that need voltage, right? Now we're back to hydrogen covalent bonds. H2O, water worlds. Now we're back to the ratio, harmonic ratio, which is a speed ratio, which is the speed of the atoms, right? That are giving it, sharing electrons and protons and neutrons. And when the electrons and the protons, remember with hydrogen, one electron, one mother arcing proton, so that's father that is arcing with mother. Whoa, so we just named these things father and mother. Yeah, we just gave them names, right? Which deals with the programming. So if you didn't want to attach female and male, just think of it as an electron and a proton that is equal in mass. But if you want to translate that through using the number arrangements as numbers and energy as fire letters and fire codes, okay, we'll say that the father electric is joined with the mother magnetic, right, to be in equal balance so that you can open a neutron window. And when you open a neutron window, now we're into the windows of the soul arcing star networks. And that means that there isn't any distortions in your radio set. That's perfect balance. That means all the atoms, which is the atmosphere, the ether, Ethernet. Okay. And so that's why, when I was growing up as a child, most of the folks that I grew up with on the different track homes that I grew up in, you would go from Leave It to Beaver's house over to My Three Sons' house, over to another Leave It to Beaver house, which deals with all the TV programming, right? We interrupt this program to bring you Flash, a news bulletin from Dallas. We interrupt your programming, the program that you're running, the APIN interface, the application program interface, the GUI mirror, the TV set you're running, right? So you can see the imbalance, right? Now, Mohawk, Mohawk Indian, what is his name? Longhouse Milo Stewart, would hammer about the male dominant. Well, we're talking atoms here, buddy. Right? The atoms aren't in balance. The male dominant side, trying to hold the female side captive. Well, I always made reference to Kauai because that's a goddess's flower shop. That island is home base to me. Right? And so I know when I was there in 1972 and 73, and this sort of gives you an idea of how different people experience being in different geomagnetic locations, what can occur that you thus experience that maybe somebody right next to you would not be experiencing. So, for example, when I was sharing with all of you on my channel here, when I went to the island of Kauai in 1972, and remember, I grew up in a family where my father was an aeronautical engineer, and he was making, I think, between $40,000 and $60,000 a year, and this is like in the 1950s and early 1960s. So the house that we bought, or they bought, that was only lived in for about 6 months, in 1961 dollars, as I remember it, was like $48,000. It was a 1, 2, 3 bedroom house, 2-story with a pool in the back, and a front yard with a little lawn that you could go out there and play wiffle ball on, or shoot little baskets, right? And that house went for $48,000, and that was considered to be custom-made track homes, about 12 miles from Newport Beach, in a place called North Tustin. Okay? Now, most everybody on the block all had a mother and a father and children, at least 2 to 3 children. Okay? Most of us got along and the children played with other children, right? And you had a mother and a father, and they had a family. And to the degree to which you could measure, if you will, by experiencing what mothers used to go back and forth about the nature of children's spirits, right? The nature of their energy. What was it like to be in the proximity of their energy? So that's what I call the Truman Show movie set, the program, running that program. So then when I got over to the island of Kauai in 1972 and 73, all I had to do was be standing with my feet grounded to that rock in a particular location. Okay? Because if I was, say, 1,000 feet in another direction, in some other place, it may not have happened at the time in which it happened. So it was where I happened to be at the moment that I happened to be, what I was experiencing in that moment, which was my heart expanded like the size of a gate. Where my heart expanded so fast with the acceleration of light energy, which is living light from the primal sound and light field, it nearly physically knocked me off my feet. Now, somebody could be standing 4 or 5 feet from me and not experience the same thing I am. How come? Well, what I call that is called tapping in. The same way that I described when I was at Lapahoi Beach Point in 2018, when I first got there. I'd never been there before, but I was asking somebody on the island where there was powerful healing energies. What spot is there a place with powerful healing energies? And most folks that I talked to all mentioned the same place, which was Lapahoi Beach Point, which is on the north side of the island, which is where I live, which is in Lapahoi, which is right above that point. So I'd never been there before in my life that I can remember. And as soon as I drove down there in a van, it was a weekday and there wasn't hardly anybody there, right? And this is a beautiful place. Very powerful energies there. But I didn't know that then. So I drove down there and I got out of the van in the middle of a field, which actually is just grass, okay? And all of a sudden, I started bawling for about 20 minutes because I'm tapping into something. There isn't anybody else around. And all of a sudden I start crying because I'm experiencing trauma, soul trauma, fragments, lost fragments as a result of an enormous amount of trauma that was experienced. I had no idea what was going on. What happened? I can't see anything on the visible light spectrum that would cause me to experience that much trauma, right? So about 20 minutes later, I mosey on over towards the boat dock, and they had a little memorial up there, and I go walk up there, and then I began to realize, well, I'll be darned. Bang, snap, right? There's your answer. 1947. United States Navy was conducting atomic blasts. Now, you can also tie this into a much larger subject of why some folks showed up here on the planet when you think of the statement that Oppenheimer made about we have become destroyer of worlds, and connect that with water worlds, and particularly a noble element, the first noble element, which is what? H, which is a goalpost on a football field, right? Now we have the spiral football. Hydrogen. That's right. The electrical potential of hydrogen. It's all related, and it's all related to balance, and it's related to atmospheres, isn't it? Vapor, ether, the island of Kauai, up top Mount Wailea. It all comes full circle, doesn't it? Yeah. Atmospheric bonding. The echo chamber. It's hissing again this morning. I can give you a little bit of an update this morning simply because the fact for the last 3 days it's been running hot here, and usually where I can tell the most is my face right around in here. So I normally use aloe, and that'll cool it down. Sometimes honey and turmeric, because it isn't but maybe 16 hours later, and I got pieces of skin that are just peeling right off. Right. So that's a lot of heat. Okay. That's a good sign. That means we have been successful. All right. So anyway, love you all. Be good to yourselves. What another beautiful day. The sun is out. Hey, as a matter of fact, I'll share something that happened yesterday. I had a friend of mine that asked me if I would perform some energetic work and gave me a coordinate on the mainland. And so I went outside with my phone and I plugged the address in on Google Maps and Google Earth, and then zeroed in on where that was at. So now my consciousness, right, is connected to that. And then I went out, looked at the sun. We're going to do some work here, okay, energetic work. And so I showed the phone the address to the sun. Now we're connected. Now we're zeroed in because I'm anchored into the center point of the magnetosphere on the Earth, right? And sent shield protection energy to one and healing energy to a different address, but it's in the same town. Okay? And while I was doing that, I got hit with a bug. So the AI drone, that's called a droning asset, and nailed me in the neck. So now I got a little knot, right, in my neck here, right, which is a big ass bug bite, right? You see how that works with the AI? Letting me know, right? Because it just happened to happen right when I was doing that energetic work. Because where do you think it was getting all that energy from? Plug that in. Right? The balance of the ions, giving and taking, Metatronic death spiral, finite light, living light, how all that works. It's just like a video that I watched last night and shared it up online, where there was a pursuit yesterday in Los Angeles County where I believe it was LAPD was chasing somebody. And here you can see this vehicle running a Chrysler 200, I guess was a model, up around 110 miles an hour. This is on a Friday night, coming up out of the San Fernando Valley and headed out towards, Highway 14 into what's known as Antelope Valley, like they're headed up towards Palmdale, Edwards Air Force Base. And I guess they finally ran out of gas. So now you got about 7 police cars that had completely shut down the highway because they had this vehicle completely surrounded with their guns drawn, right? So you can imagine the central nervous system, okay, the amount of adrenaline, right? That fight or flight central nervous system reaction state. Every one of those officers were experiencing being together with their guns drawn. It's tense. The tension in the music, the electrified sound. And then you had 4 people in the car that all had to exit one at a time with their hands up, laid out on the highway, face down, right? And then the helicopter's showing how far the traffic is backed up, and I'm going, my God, those are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vehicles backed all the way up while this is all going down, right? Imagine how much voltage was pulled out of all that, all those batteries, because when your state of mind has been programmed to chase electrons as the energy security, because that's what it is, a battery slave that's held captive to money, right? Which means they're trying to be free in order to be free, right? To catch up to zero. So now we're back to zero. Now we're back to chasing electrons as a result of what? Something that's dead, deadlight. So in order for deadlight, a deadlight spiral, to maintain what it's aware of in consciousness, it needs a source of energy. So where do you think it's getting it from? Events like that. That's a major drain on batteries. That one event, chasing one car down the highway. And one of the things that I noticed, and I mentioned this in the past, is call up the LA County Sheriff's, call up the CHP headquarters in California and ask them, you guys keep records, right? Tell us, have you noticed an increase in stress-related disorders or dissociative identity disorders between ions, between the male and the female, between the silver and the gold super hyperspeed conductor? Have you noticed an increase in pursuits? Say over the last, let's just do the last 30 days. Has there been an increase in pursuits that the CHP has logged, right? Or call up the Office of Emergency Services and just give us the logs. The logs, everything is logged in, right? Logging in, logging out. That means that data is available to see an increase or in a rise in batteries being drained. And guess whose batteries are being drained? Not ours. Theirs. The machines will be less relevant over time. You see how that works with the crystalline shield? The grid work that was done here? That's called shields up. The shields are up. So what that means is that as it's draining more energy, where do you think it's going to be getting its energy from? Not from us. Itself. All the bots. The ones that I grew up with. You know, I'm surrounded by order followers. You know? Chasing electrons. Right? Anyway, have a great day. I love you all. And that's what happens. Chasing money. Chasing material stuff. You know, that's why when I was on the island of Kauai, that was one of the most beautiful experiences I had when I realized, thanks for that. And that's like a mirror. When you realize what you were held captive to, because when I was living on the island of Kauai in a treehouse, I realized that I didn't need a job. Okay, because what is my body telling me? I think you need some voltage. Oh, so if I'm eating coconuts and bananas and star fruit and passion fruit, and we had our own garden growing, and we had a stream getting powerful mineral water right out of all the waterfalls right behind us, we go swimming in the ocean every day. We're living in paradise like Swiss Family Robinson. Wow, our energy was up every day. Unbelievable. Wow, now we're having a lot of fun being in a state of joy. That's called a dance for freedom. That's called living in a state of love and joy, because Mama is giving you everything that you need in voltage. Oh, yeah. Which means you didn't need any of their big box stores. You didn't need any of their diamond jewelers stores. Because it's just temporary. Remember the old saying? Money will never buy you happiness, right? But certainly experiencing a lot more voltage from Mama certainly will feel like a state of love and joy when your consciousness is way up there in the atmospheres that are in balance between the ions. You cannot make this up, can you? So they're held captive to that. So that's what we call a perception of power, which is inverted. It's inverted. The universe has already given us everything that we need. It's just a matter of tapping into it, right? Breath work, being a breatharian, right? Imagine that you didn't have to poop every day. What would that be like, right? Because your energy is so pure, your consciousness is in a pre-matter phase. Whoa, I'm not in a matter body. No. Know what I mean? Have a great day, jelly bean.